Hello, everybody. Happy 2025. Happy New Year. So excited to be here with you today. This is Michelle, and I'm with Dana Marie, and we are empowered to advocate. I'm excited to be back into the groove with this podcast in the new year, and so happy that you are with us. Either you've been listening since the beginning, or you are brand new to the podcast, brand new to Empowered to Advocate. We are so happy and so grateful that you are here with us today.
Welcome back, everybody. And hopefully, if you didn't already, go back and listen to episode 1 of the new season of our 2025 season. We do a little breakdown of kind of where we've been, what we've been up to, what you can look forward to from us in 2025. And then today, we're going to jump on a little trend. We're going to jump on a little 2025 in and out trend.
Love it.
You may have seen on Instagram, maybe Facebook, everyone's doing their ins and outs for 2025. And for us, what we're going to do today is just talk about what we're leaving in 2024 and what we are bringing into 2025 as special education advocates, as folks in the special education space, but also to encourage you to maybe think about bringing and leaving the same things. So
Yes.
I'm going to get us started with my leaving in 2024.
Okay. What are you leaving?
So in 2024, I'm leaving, and I hope that everyone is leaving, making decisions without anything to back up the decisions. I was just in a conversation with one of our clients the other day, who the short version of the story is the school was recommending that the student be discharged from their IEP and discharged from special education services. And when I asked the parent, what's the basis for that decision? Like, what data did they give you? What evaluations did they complete? Is this a reeval? I asked, sort of our standard questions. And she was like, none of the above. This is just an annual review meeting talking about progress. And all of a sudden the conversation switched to maybe they don't need an IEP anymore. So wild, obviously, but what we're leaving and what we're encouraging parents, caregivers, but also teachers and schools to leave behind in 2024 is making decisions without having anything to back it up. As parents and caregivers, the thing that you can do to combat that is just ask for the assessments, ask for the data, ask for the evaluations this decision is based on, ask what progress maybe this decision is based on. But let's leave in 2024 these sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of knee-jerk decisions.
Yeah.
With a lot of data and information to back them up. Top of mind for me this week.
Yeah, I feel like this is a conversation we have a lot about, like, where's the data? Show me the data. Why are we making this decision? And I think a lot of us in the world of education, in the advocacy world, folks who are caregivers, we make 1 million decisions all day, every day, especially you caregivers. We know that you're making 1 million decisions all day, every day, right? And it can be so easy, like Dana Marie said, to just make that knee-jerk, they're doing well right now. Maybe they don't need this anymore, as the example, to just kind of piggyback on that example. But always taking that moment. And I think, knowing that, reminding you caregivers that you don't need to make any decision at that IEP meeting, especially when emotions are running high, especially if you don't necessarily agree with it, but you don't. And when I talk to a lot of caregivers, there's a lot of, am I being difficult? Am I being unreasonable? And I think the only way we can answer that question truly, if we're being difficult or if we're being unreasonable, is if the data is showing us that we are.
Yeah,
that,
for sure.
That your child does not need an IEP anymore. They are making effective progress. They are not utilizing the services that are in place to help them make progress. Those would be good data points to show that they no longer need the support of an IEP anymore. But if that doesn't exist, then we might be just, wow, I'm so excited my child no longer needs an IEP, or I'm just being a pain in the butt. And so I guess, just to continue off of this, what we're leaving is making knee-jerk decisions without the data and not reminding you all that you don't have to make any decision at the table. The table is to have conversations based on data, to talk about progress, to talk about challenges, and then talk about the supports that are going to be in place. And then the district writes their proposal. And then once you have those 30 days to review, that's how you're going to make your decision.
Yeah,
right?
and not feel rushed, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's part of it too. Oftentimes we hear from parents that are panicky, quite frankly, because maybe the district has proposed an IEP and it's been, I don't know, 5 or 6 days, and then they're emailing the parent again and saying, okay, do you have an answer? Do you have a response? And us having to say to that parent, you are welcome to respond, obviously, in 5 or 6 days, especially if the IEP feels good and there's nothing you want to add or change or whatever. But you don't have to. You have 30 days to do so. You have 30 days to look at the IEP, to have somebody else look at it for you if you want to, mull it over, to ask questions if you have questions, and not be put in a position where you have to make sort of these unreasonably quick decisions about pretty important things, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're talking about important things here. It feels unfair to have to make those decisions on top of, like you said, Michelle, every other decision a parent and caregiver is making on any given day. On any given day.
And what I'm leaving behind in 2024 is very similar, in the same vein of this not making knee-jerk decisions, but also not flying by the seat of our pants. Going into meetings, and I mean, Dana Marie and I don't fly by the seat of our pants, but with advocacy work, right? But for a lot of caregivers, again, there's so much coming at you all day, every day. So many. You maybe are working full-time or part-time, taking care of your children full-time, maybe have multiple children, maybe you're a single caregiver household, right? Just life decisions and life choices, right? And I feel like we live in such a hurried sort of world and society that there's very little time, it can often feel like, to just sit down and breathe and take that pulse. And it can be like, especially the school year, like, I can't believe we're already pretty much halfway through the school year. And it's like, oh my gosh, now my child's annual IEP meeting's coming. I feel not prepared. So I think a thing that we're leaving behind, or should be leaving behind, in 2024 is that sense of always feeling 2 steps behind the school district, and just getting ourselves organized, so that we know when our child's, meeting dates are, so that we know if there's certain evaluations that are going to be taking place, what those timelines are, just like being aware of when things are coming up, so that we know when to check in about those things happening, so that we know that we want to pull together, or should already have pulled together, any documents that are going to support us going into a meeting. So leaving behind in 2024 that, like, flying by the seat of our pants, running into a meeting and just feeling kind of frenzied.
Yeah.
And if it's a day that the annual IEP meeting is a day and you are feeling frenzied and totally off, you can reschedule the meeting. You can reschedule the meeting. I wouldn't say, definitely don't just like no call, no show. Don't do that, because, we want to be respectful of the school's team's time as well. But sometimes it's not the best day. If, the baby's been crying, or the dog is sick, or your basement's flooding, you're going to go into a meeting and you're just going to not be able to totally focus on what you need to focus on. So knowing that you also have that capacity and that right to reschedule if you need to. And most school teams are going to be very compassionate and understanding to that.
Which brings me into what we're bringing into 2025. We want you to also bring into 2025 open communication.
Yeah.
Open communication. We find that parents who communicate, our parents and caregivers who communicate with the school team and the school district openly and frequently, tend to have just better outcomes in general. And then those meetings don't feel as frantic or frenzied, because you've been getting information all along. You've been communicating all along. There are hopefully no surprises at that table, at that meeting, because you've been kept abreast of what's going on in school all year long or all semester long. So that open communication is what we want to see more of in 2025. We want to encourage our parents and caregivers, even when it feels a little uncomfortable, to take some leaps to more open communication. And that's kind of what we want to see really from all sides, from all perspectives of this process. And that can simply be, when we say that, it can simply be an email that a parent sends to a classroom teacher or a specialist just checking in. Just checking in. How are things going? Anything I can be working on at home? Anything that you need from me on this end? Just checking in. Super simple. Or it can be, hey, I've noticed X, Y, and Z. Do you see that in school? Can you give me a little update on how that's going? Or, we were talking to a client the other day who was just trying to get some work samples, right? Some updated work samples. That's a great way to communicate. Hey, I noticed that so-and-so didn't bring home a lot of work in the last couple of weeks. Can you just give me an example of some writing or something that they did in reading or something they did in math, whatever you're looking to get more information about. So it can be as simple as that to, drafting an email or asking for a reconvene meeting outside of an annual or reevaluation if there's something more major that's going on that you really think the whole team needs to get together and talk about. But not being afraid, we know, even from the advocacy side, even from the teacher side, even from the team chairperson side, sometimes opening up those lines of communication can feel like it can feel challenging if it's already a challenging situation. It can feel a little icky if maybe the communication has been great up to this point. It can feel a lot of different things for a lot of different people. But overall, we just find once those doors are open and once those lines of communication are sort of set, it can make, not 100%, it's not foolproof, but it can make the process feel a little bit more smooth and also can make those meetings and those more formal conversations feel a little off.
Yeah, totally agree that that's all super useful for, if you're having conversations all the time, you're less, and, teachers and team members sharing data with you all along, then coming back to, the first, what we were leaving behind in 2024, like making those knee-jerk decisions, leaving that behind, you're less likely to even be put in a position of there being some sort of surprise at a meeting. And then if there is a surprise at the meeting, if there's been open communication throughout the school year or multiple school years with the service members that your child has been lucky enough to have for more than 1 year, that doesn't always happen, but when it does, what a delight. If that open communication, you're getting data and feedback and questions answered throughout the year, and that doesn't mean it has to be every day, right? But if you have a pretty good idea of what is happening with your child and their progress in school, then if something really unexpected happens in a meeting and you know that you've been shared, like if all year long the speech therapist is saying they're making so much progress, they've made a ton of gains, they're reaching all of their IEP goals, and then at the meeting the team's like they need more speech, then you might be like, what
happened?
why you told me they're doing great. What's more likely to happen is your speech therapist might be saying your child is really struggling, they're not making the progress we were hoping to see, and then you might go into a meeting, they might be like, we want to reduce speech services. Then you already, you can say in the meeting, but that's not what I've been hearing all year long, right? So you kind of know that you're not just having like an overly emotional response. You actually know that you have data in your folder that you've organized that data doesn't support that decision.
Yeah, that's such a good point too. Like it just sets you up for success, obviously being prepared and having that open communication, because like I said before, hope in a perfect world, it will eliminate these surprises. But if they do come up, you have things to rely on. You've been emailing back and forth. You have things written down. You've been asking for work samples. You have some, like Michelle said, like in a folder or binder or in a Google Drive, like with you for the meeting. And hopefully, even if there's a little surprise or something that comes up that you weren't expecting, you'll have some tools in your toolbox to be able to at least engage in the conversation, even if you can't make a decision right on the spot. All right, one more thing, Michelle, what else are we bringing into 2020?
Bringing in asking for help when we need it. There's a lot of great information out there in the internet world. There's a lot of great advocates. There's a lot of great family members who might be offering help. And As a caregiver, you may have been hesitant to hire an advocate or do a record review or ask a friend to come to a meeting with you. Because again, maybe you didn't, and rightfully so, feeling like you're trusting your child's team, right? And there should be a level of trust. There should be trust. But sometimes we get to a point where something just doesn't feel right. And if you are not a professional educator, you are not a professional occupational therapist, you are not a special ed lawyer or advocate or whatever, you're not supposed to know all of these things that go on, right? So it might feel like as the parent, as the caregiver, you should know these things, but rest assured you're not supposed to know. And when you hit a point where you're not sure if you should sign this IEP, or I don't agree with what's in this IEP, what can I do? What boxes do I check? This is where reaching out for support, to ask questions, for some guidance is, going to be really invaluable for you and your child. And, Empowered to Advocate, Dana Marie and I, and we talked about this in the last episode, kind of reintroducing who we are and our mission with Empowered to Advocate. And it is to empower you to be your child's advocate. But that doesn't mean that as soon as you say, I'm going to be my child's advocate, poof, you know all special ed law, you know everything you need to know, right? You're probably going to need some support and some guidance. And that's okay. You're not a failure. You're actually going above and beyond to make sure your child's getting what they need.
Amazing. So goodbye 2024. Let's leave that frantic and frenzied feeling. Let's leave behind making knee-jerk decisions or decisions without data to back it up. And let's bring in open communication and asking for help. Those feel like two really good things to bring into this new year. So with that, we're curious. What are your ins and outs when it comes to special education, when it comes to just education in general, when it comes to your child's education? What are your ins? What are your outs? Let us know. Drop a note to us. We're so curious. It's actually just reminded me, let's go back. I can go back and look at the ones we did last year. Now that I'm trying to think of the ones we did last year. So this is a good reminder. I'm going to go back and look at the ones we did last year. But if you have good ones, send them to us. We want to hear from you. What's in? What's out? What are we looking forward to in 2025? And with that, thank you once again for joining us on the Empowered to Advocate podcast. There are so many ways that you can stay in touch with us. We encourage you to join our free newsletter that comes out twice monthly. That's a great place to just get updates from us, but also tips, strategies, special events. We often link conferences and workshops and things that are going around virtually and in person. And then when we're hosting events and workshops, we add all the information there and you all hear about it first. So use that link in the show notes and join our twice monthly newsletter. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, follow us here. Make sure you subscribe. We're back and you're going to be hearing from us weekly for a bit now. And once again, thanks so much for joining us and we will talk to you next time.